What's up? Welcome back to another edition of Live from Redhook here at the Function House. My name's Mike Gentile. We're along here with Anthony Vitale. And tonight we are welcoming to the show the one and only DJ Reach.
How are you guys?
My man.
Honor. It's an honor and a pleasure, honestly. I know you had some of the greats.
I had to catch you off
in
guard.
the stage.
Yeah.
You totally caught me off guard. I was trying to delay. I was let me check my schedule. Come through next
You
week.
gave me the excuse that my computer froze.
Last time it did though. Anybody who knows me knows my computer issues are real, but they're on the up and up now. I went to Apple. Yeah, I went to Apple. You know, they set me straight. You know, everything's good. They took a lot of my money, so now it should be good. Yeah.
Vitale's been amping you up for months.
Damn.
Trying to get him on here,
For
right?
months.
Damn.
When we're sitting down and we're going like through Ross's, all right, who we getting on next week's show? Next month's show, he's like, I gotta get Reach, but he's like never around. So
Damn, I've been honestly cooking up some things for the industry, for the city, for the culture. You know, I really been the last few years have been pretty crazy for me, but really everything's all come together and come to like a pinnacle point, and just a point of just major change and major new growth in this last year.
I've seen a lot of stuff's been going on.
Yeah. I haven't fully announced things that are about to happen,
it's a
but
perfect time right
yeah,
now.
yeah. I love this
Yeah.
platform.
So
and
is-
it's no better way. I wear New York on my sleeve and it's on my heart. And this is the most New York show that I know. So
Yes.
That's right.
I'm honored to just
I
be
appreciate
here with
that.
you guys and talk about what's going on. I was with Scam Artist Management, obviously one of the most well-known agencies in the country. I was with them for 10 years,
Wow.
2006 to 2016. And, maybe about in May, June, I parted ways. I let them know that I wanted to move on and do some different things with my career. And I have the utmost respect for them. Sujit, I consider him a friend. I consider him, a longtime brother of mine. In every way, in the sense that, brothers have great triumphs together, and they also have, differences of opinions and, arguments and things like that, but it only brings them closer, and it only, usually in a healthy way gives you nothing but respect for that person. So
So let me ask you, why did you leave Scam?
Man, that's the $1 million question.
that's a loaded
That's
question.
that's the
dying to get on
multi-million
Scam.
dollar question. I think there's a lot of reasons why for me, but I grew there as an artist to understand in ways that I had to understand certain things about myself. I learned a lot of hard lessons, not because of the agency necessarily, but because of me as a young man and as a young artist in music and in the DJ culture and nightlife, experiencing certain things. I was there for, most of my 20s to my mid-30s. My mid-20s to my mid-30s, I was probably like one of the first 10 DJs signed to Scam. I don't know if most people know that, but that's the truth.
Okay.
And I think, I have the utmost respect for Sujit, and I have the utmost respect for Scam as an organization. What Sujit's built is phenomenal. It's an American dream type of business. He deserves all the credit for building something that was his passion and his idea into a multi-million dollar empire, and arguably the strongest brand in its respective field of open format DJ agencies. And so, for that, as a businessman and an entrepreneur myself, I have the utmost respect. As an artist, I see how ambitious with the things that I'm doing now, the shoes that I'm in now, I have newfound respect for the fact that what I now realize on the other side with the new project I'm going to tell you about.
Now you see the business side.
I see the business side. I mean, I've always seen the business side, but I see from the shoes of someone running an agency, not to let the cat out of the bag, but how challenging it is, and the challenges that you don't see when you sit in the artist seat. When you sit in the artist seat, and I now work with about 30 artists myself, and when you sit in the artist seat, you're thinking about what I'm not getting and what I feel I deserve and where I feel I should be. And so I think I went through a lot of moments of, kind of just growing pains and moments of frustration as, I'm sure there's artists out there right now that are not on agencies, artists that are on agencies, artists that might be on scam agency or any agency right this minute that are feeling some frustrations. And I think it's never the fault of the agency itself. We're all human beings, we're all grown men and women, and your destiny is up to you. And I think what got us, when I sit down with artists now that I think about signing to my new agency, which is my new project.
What's the name of the agency?
It's called Play Music Artist Management. And it's.
How'd you come up with the name?
I was thinking about, I call it Play Music Artist Management, PMAM for short. Because, I was thinking about, I got to a point in the last couple of years where I had to ask myself if I really wanted to keep DJing. And I've been DJing for 25 years, and I never thought that I would have that feeling. Because DJing is, when you're in the booth, you guys know, it's the greatest feeling. It's the biggest
euphoric.
rush.
It's euphoric.
It's euphoria,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And so, for me to get to a point where I was so frustrated or just had lost the enthusiasm and the passion for this craft, for me to get to that point, it had to be a really, really challenging and difficult set of factors to make me feel like that.
So what was
Why
it?
do you think
Yeah.
that happened?
What was it?
Yeah, that's the big question. There's a couple things. For me, to be honest with everybody, I was a young guy who was living his dream, playing all over the world. Played in Asia, played Europe, played South America, played South Africa, played some of the greatest clubs in America on a weekly basis. My career was really broke out with first with Carson Daly. One of my former partners had put me in touch with the station, with the TV show to do an audition, and the audition turned out that I landed the gig. And long story short, that eventually led me, helped me get the momentum I needed to get through the doors, get the confidence in my brand, and with peers around me, from club owners to promoters to just fans and followers, to have the balls to go up to guys like Noah Tepperberg and Jason Strauss and say, I'm not in your lineup at your new club Marquee, which just opened 2 months ago, but I need to be in here, and here's my demo 5 or 10 times without any response, without any yes, you're on, and just it's gonna come back to a point that I want to make that's about being fearless and you have to have the utmost confidence to fulfill your dreams and to go after them. And I'm not saying something that people don't really know, but I just want to reiterate that. And you have to truly be fearless. I follow entrepreneurs. I follow not just entrepreneurs, but people in our lifetime, whether they're our generation or past generations, who have helped to change the world, whether
Right.
it's technology people or freedom fighters or poets and artists and singers and whatever have you, and I notice that one of the common denominators between all those people is there's no
stopping.
There's no stopping. There's no chance. Failure is not an option.
Exactly.
And so you have to have that fearlessness to be brave enough to really, especially in the era that we come from, which is 90s hip hop, house, R&B, New York.
Yes.
Where no disrespect to this generation of DJs and producers, but in our era, the barrier of entry into the craft was you got to buy every single record or find a way, from your parents to a record label to somebody throwing it out in the garbage, or making a trade with somebody as a kid. You got to find a way to put this collection together, record by record, song by song. And so, it's not for the weak-hearted as a hobby, and it starts off as a hobby. It starts off as, I want to, hey, I did soccer, I did karate. Let me try DJ.
So wait, let's pause for a second.
Yes.
Let's pause. You're on a roll right now.
I need some water. Hold on. I don't want to run out of juice right now.
Let's take it back. So you're born 1979.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Harlem, New York. Yes.
Okay.
Grew up the block from down the block from Big L, and on the same block as Ron Browse, the producer who made Ebonics and Ether and Pop Champagne and A-Rap Money and all these great records,
What gave you that buzz? How'd you want what wanted you to make play in a crowd, DJ, rock it?
I think my story is probably similar to a lot of people out there, and maybe some of you guys. I saw, like, hip hop growing up in New York in the 80s and in the 90s. Hip hop was all around. It was all around me in my neighborhood. I was in a graffiti crew. I was in a breakdancing crew, and
so you were doing the windmills?
I was doing the head spins. I was doing the head spins, which was like the hardest thing. But it was
had
like
the hair. Like, we don't have hair.
I always had hair.
No cushion.
Almost always there. Yeah, that's true.
The hair gives you the cushion, man.
I got something to lend. I'll put a package together and send you some. But so I was doing, the head spins, and so all the elements of their graffiti, b-boying, freestyling, obviously.
You grew up at a great time.
It was such a great time.
It was, and I honestly, I reminisce on the old New York. A lot of people from our era, we do,
because it was like everything was like molding at that time.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you had all different things like just coming together.
Totally. It was raw. And
yes,
it was raw. I mean, grunge was raw in the 90s. We were lucky enough to witness so many forms of music that shaped culture today and our institutions today in pop culture. When you see the kids that are 21 and 19 going back, and even kids like A$AP Rocky, who they're in their mid 20s or maybe their late 20s, and they came in the game kind of emulating 90s style. I remember looking at A$AP Rocky the first time and being like, okay, this guy's from Harlem, I'm from Harlem. But I was like, wait, this young guy's got Snoop's braids, he's got Raf Simons and this and that high fashion outfit, Snoop's braids. He's rapping in like a chopped and screwed type of down south way. I was like, man, he's taking pieces of the culture that came before him, and he's kind of like mixing and matching it the way he wants. And at first, as like a purist of the culture, I was like, yo, that's fake, or I judged it. And I was one of those people who was like, yo, what's that all about? But now I see, obviously every piece of art is influenced by other art. Right. That we know, you know what I mean? And I'm sure, though the 70s or whatever, or the early 80s, previous generations weren't necessarily our era, but we were influenced by them, and there might have been something in our swag, an ill leather jacket we had, or something that that was a kind of tipping our hats to a previous era. So I mean, it's just interesting. I think the way culture moves, and I think growing up in New York was really a blessing. Seeing hip hop come together right in front of our eyes, and being in the city that everybody around the world was trying to get to, and still to this day is trying to get to, and having arguably the most legendary nightlife scene in the world. The nightclub scene in New York, 80s, 90s, 70s is legendary.
Yes.
Nobody can contest that. And for me, I saw the movie Juice, and that's what I was gonna say was kind of like probably something that a bunch of other DJs could say that was an influence on them as well. I literally was 12, 13 years old. I saw the movie. I walked out of the theater. I remember clear as day, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. That's what I'm gonna do. And that was the first time, other than wanting to be Michael Jordan or wanting to be Dave Winfield or something like that.
Definitely turned on by those scratching
scenes.
Crazy is that
Totally.
You leave a movie theater, you want to do this, you know that's what you want to do, and then you get an internship with Stretch Armstrong.
Yes,
How did
and
that come about?
Stretch was an idol of mine. He was someone, and he's still, ultimate respect to Stretch. He was a leader of the new school at that time, right in front of our eyes. And I, being that I lived uptown, and before I lived on Lenox Avenue, before that I lived on 121st Street, which I was a little closer to Columbia University, where they recorded the show. Yeah. So I felt like it was just like everything that he was doing was right in my backyard. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I get to the show? And my graffiti crew on the Upper West Side and from Harlem was some kids that were down with Curious George. Some of the members of my crew were down with Curious George the rapper, and Curious George in his group had Lord Sear, and Lord Sear ended up being on Stretch's show. And so there were these connection points. And
What was your tag?
Reach. That's where Reach came from. Reach was, and the thing with Reach was, I liked Reach because because to me it meant, like striving for something. And also in graffiti, literally in graffiti, whoever gets the most hard to reach spot gets the most respect.
Yes.
And I could talk about graffiti for 10 hours right now, but that's another chapter of my life. I want to touch for 1 second just on, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I want to give respect to the fact that New York City was such a different city, and being a kid and being a young person whose mind was being shaped by the city and the things you experience, you can tell by the music that was coming out at that time. You could tell by, just people's attitude. The New York attitude was what we know it to be.
Yes.
And I think, I don't want to say that it's lost, but it's changed. And
well, it's too businesslike today.
Yeah, and I think this, Manhattan especially, and now Brooklyn, Bronx, everything, is becoming, for the tourists, and it's becoming, kind of for visitors. And there's been an element of that through our whole lives, but there's been a very big sense of pride about being a true New Yorker, being a native, and things like that. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. That's one of my favorite topics to talk about, is like that era and what we experienced going through, coming up in that era, and how real I feel it was. You know what I mean? But I think one of the things that I've now kind of grown to understand is, while you give respect to the past, you want to think about your future as whether an artist, a business person, whatever it is that you do, because I think of this Bob Dylan quote that a lot of the people that I look up to have referenced, which is, if you're not busy getting born, then you're busy getting dying, which means you have to constantly be growing, reinventing yourself, changing with the times, or else you're slipping behind, and I think I got to a point, to bring it back full circle, I think I got to a point at Scam where I wasn't inspired anymore, and that's not necessarily because of Scam, but maybe that's just me, the experience I had. I was young, making more money than I ever thought I could make. IRS, you can delete that for me. Not a lot of money. Just for me, for where I started from, it was a lot of money. And parties, girls, Vegas, contracts, billboards with
Vegas every week. Vegas.
Yeah.
Flying out there.
No, you were there every Saturday at Tao for like 4 or 5 years, right?
I started off Thursdays and Fridays, and then
this was crates too. You were flying.
Crates. I had crates.
And you're still breathing.
And I'm still alive, barely. I'm working on that.
Gamble?
But I made a pact with myself early on that I wouldn't really touch the table. In 5 years, I barely touched the table. I'm not a big gambler, but I am just as I have as much of an addictive personality as anyone can have. And I just whatever I did is what I did, but I didn't touch the tables that much.
That's gotta be crazy. Actually flying there every Saturday to work, every Thursday.
Were you staying out there for extended periods of time?
And the crazy thing was that I wasn't. And if I could, I wouldn't change a thing about the things that I've experienced in the last 10 years. But my experience would have been different if I spent more time there. And I think some of my peers who really established a stronger foundation in Vegas ended up having a bigger influence and deeper roots planted there. I flew in and I flew out, and it felt cool to do that. It felt like, oh, you know what? I'm a featured attraction that comes in. I'm here for a short amount of time, and then I'm gone. Yeah. Catch me if you can, you know. And that felt good. But I realized as a business person that after the fact, as a business person, and an artist, that I was focusing, because I started off as a DJ promoter when I really started to kind of break through in New York as a DJ, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna bring 20 girls or 30 girls or a couple of tables to the club, and that's gonna solidify my spot. That's gonna let them know, he's doing his thing, he should be here, and he's living up to, that plus his music and his performance, he's living up to the standard of the superstar that we want him to be, or whatever it is. And it wasn't that. What you really have to do, and I think I said it once before, or people who know me have heard me say this, if you want longevity at a venue as a DJ or in a residency, you have to really nurture the relationships with the staff that you work with. Every manager, if you can, should think highly of you. Every waitress, if you can, should think highly of you. Every busboy, every bathroom attendant, I'm serious, every security guard, it's a
relationship
given.
management, right?
Totally, and it's a given that the audience needs to like you. That's a given. Yep. So it's like, you know what, you gotta be nice at ball to get to the league. But beyond that, to be on a team, is to make it so that you're in a family. And this is one of the key things about where I'm at in my career right now. I've had the great fortune of being part of a few of the most successful nightlife families. Tao Group family, I've been part of that family. I was very closely connected to that family from 2003, probably till about 2010, maybe a little longer than that. Scam Artist family, I've been part of that, very close for, the last 10 years. And I think one of the key things about being in those family settings is to make sure that you really treat it like you would treat your own family. Really try to make long-lasting connections and friendships and bonds with people, because the thing that you know about your family is they're with you through thick and thin, through your greatest triumphs and your darkest moments, your biggest defeats. And it's tough because, now that I work with artists in a different type of way as a manager, I see how hard it is to really understand the importance of that because you're thinking about your career, you're thinking about me, you're thinking about, these guys might be on my team, but technically they're my competition. That's my boy maybe, but there's certain people that you don't look at like that. But you might be in a squad of DJs or a crew where, or you might be just the residents at a club where, you're figuring, all right, yeah, I'm Friday, he's Thursday, or he's Saturday, but you know what? Like, I'm really in competition with him. And that's kind of not the way to think about it. You want to build those bridges, you want to nurture those relationships, because that's really what's going to transcend time. And people work with people who they like, and they work with people who make a positive impression on them. Right. You can look at the EDM bubble, we could call it, in a market like Vegas, and I think, I don't, and I'm not taking anything away from those DJs, but I don't think every one of those DJs was looked at by the establishments that were handing them hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars and said, that guy's part of the family, that girl's part of the family. And if they did, the ones that did have that type of impression, they're still at those clubs.
Right.
And the ones that didn't, that it was just a transaction, they're not there anymore. You know, and I think artists really need to think about their career as not only as a talent, but also as a business person. That's very key. And you have to treat your brand the way that Pepsi treats their brand, the way that Drake treats his brand. And don't think because you're DJing that your logo doesn't matter. Your logo does matter. Don't think that, you know, because you're a DJ, you know, you can get away with certain things, maybe being unprofessional in some way, or, you know, kind of not living up to the standards of, you know, hey, you know, your interview's got to be on point. You know, you know, if your competitors, if microphone work is what's getting people jobs, you got to figure out how to do microphone work. I watched Vice go from being a DJ who did not touch the mic and played edits like a lot. What I experienced from traveling as a New York DJ at first in those years was, man, a lot of the West Coast guys don't touch the mic. They play edits that have put your hands up in the air and stuff like that. You heard AM play them. You heard other radio DJs and club DJs from the West Coast. Not everybody, but I heard a lot of them play that. And I thought, as a New York guy coming from the roots of hip hop on the East Coast,
just grab the mic.
I thought that's second nature.
Right.
Kid Capri, everybody from my hood, from, you know, my city, it was just how you did it.
Yep.
And you know, arguably you could say West Coast DJs were badass scratchers and turntablists, and maybe they had an edge on us that way. And, you know, obviously whatever, everybody was talented, everybody is talented. But I watched a guy like Vice see me on Friday make a very huge impact by using the mic. And he had amazing talents on the turntables, but he knew he was deficient in the microphone category, controlling the crowd with the mic. He could control it with his hands, but he wasn't as strong as controlling it with the mic. And he made sure that he worked on that and came back the next summer or the next couple months or the next year with a mic game, and he improved it and worked on it till it got to the point where it is now, till it got to the point where it's that no fear. Yeah. You know, and
it's also somebody being a constant student of the game.
Yes.
You know, like a lot of guys think
Yes.
they get to a certain level and then they stop putting in the work.
Yes.
And it's not just going to be your skill alone, because
Never.
we all know that there's some great DJs that are out there today that are just not playing anywhere.
Yes.
And it's because they're missing.
I'm coming for them. I want to sign you. I want you to come sit down with me, and I want to bring you to the stage that you need to be on.
Right.
I want to give you the light that you deserve.
So here's a question for you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
You
off. I totally agree with
You
you.
just mentioned about how competition on agencies, and now you're an owner of an agency.
Yes.
So
Can I say one last thing about the mic also? AM came to me. Sorry. AM, just because I think people might be interested to know this. One of the things AM, who was a friend of mine, said to me was, Reach, I would trade my hands. He said, sometimes I feel like I would trade my hands for your mic skills. AM said that. So everybody out there who respects AM said that, and AM, we all know, is a legend in the game, and there's DJs today that wouldn't have the house that they have and wouldn't drive the car that they drive and might be at a day job and might be DJing back in the crib and not as a career and not traveling the world if it weren't for AM. So, you know, respect to AM for that, and you know, just understanding the value of just all these pieces of the game. Back to what you were saying.
So you're an owner of an agency.
Yes.
By the way, I would trade my hands for your hair.
Man, listen, if it keeps growing, I swear, I'll make you a deal.
You're an owner of an agency, right?
Yes.
So now you know about the competition that goes on with agencies. How are you going to stop this in your own agency?
You're saying between DJs and the agency?
Between DJs, they're all going to be in competition.
That's a great question. I think the key is together we will rise. You can act alone. I work with some DJs now. And on my agency, I'll let you know now, I have 30 DJs that I'm working with, verbal agreements. I have a contract. I haven't even given it to them yet to sign because I don't feel comfortable. Because I'm never going to ask you to sign something until I feel I'm delivering opportunities to you, and enough opportunities that are measurable so you could say, Reach added this many gigs or this much game to my brand, this much value to my brand. So I don't want to sign a contract with you yet. I do want to sign it eventually in the near future, but only when I can say and you can say that without a doubt, me and my agency, me and PMAM, have brought you a measurable amount of value that you see significant growth in your brand, in your calendar, in your bank account, hopefully. So, and to address what you said about how to, so there's a certain level of competition that's healthy. I'm sure Jeter and A-Rod competed for RBIs or home runs or the big hits and the big moments,
right,
and still were team.
Yep.
But if the key is the two teams out of a few, Carson Daly, I consider myself having been 5 seasons on his show. I've considered myself as being part of his team as well in my career. But from the scam team and the strategic group, Tao group team, both of them referenced the Yankees and said, we are the Yankees. And when you think of the Yankees, you think of a dynasty. You think of the greatest, one of the greatest sports team legacies in the entire category of sports, period. The history of sports. And you think of championships, you think of brotherhood, you think of triumphs and success, you think of tough years, but comebacks and going from the champion to the underdog and back and forth. And I think the only thing that holds a team of young talents, or just it doesn't matter age, but young at heart talents, hungry talents, is good management, a good coach. A good coach, any team, any player who's ever won a championship will tell you that they had a good coach, and a certain amount of that respect goes to having a good coach. So when I was at Scam Artist with a great coach, not a coach that I always agreed with, but a coach that I also had nothing but respect for, and every day I see things that he did and I understand them more now. There's certain things that I still don't agree with. That will be the cornerstone of what makes my agency different from his agency. But at the baseline, there's nothing but respect, first and foremost. Being a coach, when I was there, I realized in the last few years of being there, over the last few years, that there were things that I felt I wasn't getting.
Well, you got to understand something.
Yes.
You're a DJ owning an agency. So you're a DJ.
Yeah, yes, great point.
Not a DJ. So
yes.
It's a little bit different the way he manages and the way you're going to have.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think he has a great advantage, and he is able to. I gained a lot of wisdom from him and his DJs if they're listening to him, which most or all do. He has the unique wisdom of someone coming from the record industry, coming from being a promoter of records at radio, and a veteran at this point, a senior vice president of the record industry. And he has a certain amount of game that if you're wise and you're on his team, or you have the good fortune to be in his atmosphere, soak up that, because that's valuable wisdom that not everybody, and not every business person, not everybody in entertainment, not everybody in nightlife has. And I think, but like you said, being the artist and living in those shoes, and also being in a managerial position now, I have 2 sets of perspective, which helps me and is an advantage to me to be able to engage my artists. When I look at my artists in the eye and I say I've been there, they know I'm not fronting. Not to say that anybody else is fronting like that, but I'm just saying, like, they know. I think anyone who signs on to be down with me or work with me, and I look at it as being in a partnership. Anyone who wants to be in a partnership with me, we could call it management artist, or we could just call it partnership, because that's really what it is. Anyone who wants to be in a partnership with me knows my accomplishments, or knows my tenure in this game. So I'm trying to equip my artists, and I won't rest until I equip my artists with, the tools that they need to grow their career not just their DJ career, their career as an artist. All aspects. I'm not gonna get too deep into it because I don't want to reveal my sauce, my secret sauce. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm doing. And when I sit with you, the first thing I say is, for most of the people that I've been able to work with so far, is what drew you to DJing. I want to understand why you're, like you guys asked me, what was it? Where did I start? What was that thing when did the bug bite me? Yeah. And understanding that is a way for me to understand their passion, what made them interested in it. And then on top of that, understanding their brand and their brand identity. What do you want people to feel when you perform? What do you want people to walk away feeling or saying? Is maybe we could put some words on it, because those words and those that putting kind of trying to get an understanding and wrap our head around what that is that you want to deliver people as an experience, as a performer, that has to be consistent through your entire brand, through your merchandise, through your interviews, through your images on social media, through the music that you hopefully one day make. It's got to come across. It comes across with Kanye. He fights for artists. He fights for, what he feels is being unapologetically passionate. Even if I'm dissing somebody, even if that's one of the essences of Kanye is, I'm unapologetically passionate. I speak my mind. I wear what I want. I say what I want. I move in a certain way. And if you don't like it, he might say you're whack. You know what I mean? But you got to think he's so good at that because it's true in his swag. It's true in his music. It's true in his imagery. It's true in his merchandise. It's consistent.
Right.
So the way I'm approaching artist management is from an artist development standpoint. I went back and did research on CAA, Michael Ovitz, and how he started CAA with 4 other agents that used to be in William Morris. Before I read on Michael Ovitz, I went back and read on William Morris Agency and how it started in the vaudeville era in New York and the journey that that company and that entrepreneur went on. I'm a big tech geek in certain ways. I follow all of the big founders of the biggest tech products that have changed our this generation and would probably change the next generation and there's just certain ideas and certain things that come up over and over again that you see as these common threads: the fearlessness, the desire to impact people with something, to want to make people feel something or change their lives in some way. For us, it's I want to affect people maybe at that night in that club. And I want them to walk away I want them to be there and forget about the fact that, they had a bad day or the wife cheated on them or, they just got fired or whatever, the kids won't stop crying, whatever it is. We want them to shed all that. And we want them to be in the zone with us and go on that journey. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do,
So it's kind of like, you want to be that mentor to these artists. You want to give them the direction. You want them to see the whole package in terms of what it means to be a DJ, an artist, true to their form, but also be consistent with their brand, the whole package.
100%. You have to have that 360 awareness of, every aspect of what you're doing. It's not easy. It's a tough job.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. I saw like a mug or a t-shirt once that said, you have the same hours in the day that Beyonce has. Which is like, man, she's doing a million things, touring and looking good and singing and writing songs and producing records maybe and, all these things, speaking up for certain all these things, and she has the same hours in the day that we have. So it's almost like meant to be inspirational, I feel, to be like, man, let me push myself to do more.
So let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
Though. Do you think, going into this full-fledged, starting your agency, do you think it's going to take away from your time that you're going to spend DJing?
You guys, your questions are absolutely spot on. I'm so glad you asked that. I sat with a couple of DJs, that are now on the roster that asked me and said, well, maybe there's other agencies out there that they know of, or maybe they've heard of music industry situations where a founder is putting themselves first. The founder says, come on my team, but once they get on that team, they realize maybe opportunities are going to the founder first, or they're going to a certain clique of artists, the founder and his friends, or things like that.
It happens a lot.
That happens. I think we all know that happens. It's not hard to find examples of that historically or even right now in our industry. I've made a decision before I decided to, in order for me to decide to make a transition and say I'm going to take on this challenge, DJ Reach, the artist, is on the back burner. I'll do gigs. I got bills to pay. I have some great opportunities that have happened in my life, but I still have bottom lines. I still have people that I'm responsible to, and that's a reality. But from the people that I look up to in life, those mentors, those culture shapers, family members, whatever, when you're giving back, when your success and happiness comes from giving others success and happiness, you can't lose. You're forever rich.
Of course.
You're forever wealthy. So to me,
you're only as good as the team that you surround yourself with.
Thank you. So to me, you're not in competition with DJ Reach. I do a party. I won't talk about that.
But we will be at Tuesday Baby Tuesday tonight.
Well, that's an interesting thing actually as well. There's some controversy there. Not controversy, but it's another lesson that I've learned, and I think this journey as an artist, as a human being, is just about coming to these crossroads, coming to these experiences, and how you not navigate, but how you stand tall and how you handle yourself when going through challenges. Tuesday Baby Tuesday, I've been with the party for 13 years. I'm still part of that family. That's another family that I've been amazingly fortunate to be a part of. I didn't start the party, but I've been the soundtrack to that party every single Tuesday, maybe 5 Tuesdays that I've ever missed in 13 years.
That's amazing.
5 Tuesdays, maybe, in 13 years. I've been the soundtrack to that party for 13 years, and that to me is an accomplishment that I stand on firmly, because major influential people in my life, is all I'm gonna say, told me not to do that party, told me to walk away from that party at a certain point, told me that you should be at a bigger name club when that party wasn't necessarily at the biggest name club in New York City for an era. But that party was investing in me by putting me next to artists, giving me the chance to make partnerships and bring recording artists, some of them on their first time ever performing in New York, some of them for the first time getting to get their record played to an audience fresh out the studio. And in many ways, that party is an extension of DJ Reach brand in many ways.
It's been a platform for you.
Sure. And as of lately, I've sort of actually kind of am on a break with the party right now. The residents currently, my boy Shortcuts, respect to him, Stacks, respect to him, 2 young, hungry guys who busted their asses just like you and me and any other hardworking DJ, and came up and seized opportunities and knew about the value of those relationships with managers of clubs and staff members of clubs and the promoter that's hiring them and his staff and so forth, and made the right moves that they needed to make to solidify their position there. And the party's cycling through a variety of DJs right now, trying out guest DJs, and I think that that speaks to a larger issue that's going on with New York nightlife in general, and maybe nightlife around the nation, but definitely New York nightlife, which is things are changing. There's a generation of kids now that I don't think, and I don't mean any disrespect to these establishments, I'm speaking as a business person. I'm speaking as someone who's a student of the game.
You're not the first one who spoke about New York nightlife.
Yeah,
So a lot of people know there's
of course,
an issue, and
sure.
It's not changing, and it's changed, and it has changed a lot.
Yes, and I'll say this. I think there's establishments that are well-known establishments that might be staple nightclubs that the kids of this era, the kids who, some of them are the influencers of this moment, some of them are the, maybe the masses in the herd, but I don't know if they look at those places that were our era or, the ones that sort of defined my career and some of my peers' careers and you guys, and say that those are the places that they have to be at. I don't think, and what I'm seeing, and no disrespect to those establishments, but I think there's a shift, and they know there's a shift. I've had meetings with certain staffs of certain clubs. There's a shift going on right now where it's not necessarily about the restaurant or the nightclub or the big name. That's not necessarily. Those places are amazing. They are absolutely some of the best places to find nightlife and premium entertainment. But I don't know if they are moving the needle in terms of where the momentum is. I think in the past 10 years, those places have had momentum on their side.
Well, they've had tremendous success.
Tremendous success, absolute American dream type of entrepreneurial success stories. And I'm not saying that they're not going to again move the needle and lead the pack or have the ultimate momentum on their side, but I think the kids are interested. As you look, they're interested in festivals, they're interested in live. One of the things that Tuesday Baby Tuesday always brought to the table was live programming, live performances every single Tuesday that we could possibly manage it. We had somebody for the most of the last 10 years. And I think that speaks to what the youth want, because there's a lot of info out there, there's a lot of options and places to go, but if I can go somewhere and 2 Chainz is gonna be there, or Chance the Rapper's gonna be there, or whoever, Travis Scott's gonna be there, why wouldn't I go there? And you could say a lot of it also probably has to do with technology. People are wanting to broadcast on their channel, on their Instagram, that they're in the room with Travis Scott. So there's other aspects that are not the fault, or not at all, not to take anything away from those amazing, stellar venues. I think times are changing. So what I see now, and I'll say this very loud and clear, is there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for anyone who wants to take advantage of this moment in time and take the risk of trying to build something that doesn't exist, or trying to build a new movement. And this movement might work with those venues and might be a component of, I think the promoter movement, the kings of nightlife that we know, Noah Tepperberg, Jason Stoush, Richie Akiva, they came up as promoters. They are the standouts, the all-stars of 90s nightclub, New York promoter culture, which is a phenomenon. It's not something that existed in that same way in the 80s. It's not something that existed that same way in the 70s. It is a specific phenomenon. You could write articles about it. You could write books about it if you want. Those people crowned and kinged that movement, and they made One Oak nightclub, which is around the world. They made, Tao and so on and so forth, and other great brands that exist around the country. And I think you have to give them the ultimate respect. I think times have changed, and that it may be a moment where there's room for something new as those guys extend their monopolies or their empires to hotel properties or global property strategies. And I think I want to inspire people who are looking to spark that new thing, and maybe do it with those guys, or do it with guys like that, the legends. And so that's part of what's motivated me to create a new agency, because I don't just think of it as a DJ company. I don't think of it as a management crew. I think of it, when I talk to the people who are down with me, and if you one day are down with me, I'll say this to you as well, come be a part of a movement. We have the ability to, with whoever we may work with, change the game. I'll give you examples, and these are examples that any big dog in the industry gives respect to. They may not bow to them, but they tip their hat to them. I'm talking about movements, or if they're aware of them, they do and they should and they would. I'm talking about the kids from Selection. I'm talking about, the guys who do Everyday People Brunch. I'm talking about the guys who, MoMA and Chef Roble. I'm talking about the guys from the Do-Over. I'm talking about the same type of movements. I don't know if they'll get to legendary status, those guys, but the same type of movements that sparked a party called Holotronics with a guy named Diplo in Philly that ended up becoming the biggest pop producer of the moment. Yeah. And the leader of EDM arguably right now. The same type of culture, the same type of movements that were sparked by Cinespace, the party that Aoki did in LA every week at Cinespace, playing all electro at a movie theater, like an offbeat movie theater, and Banana Split Sundays with AM and Aoki. When AM was getting $25,000 to $50,000 to do corporate events and nightclubs, he was bored. I booked him. My ex-partners and I, my buddies, we booked him one of his last times that he ever performed in New York, and even the last few times that I would see him, there was a point, maybe not in the very end, but there was a point where, I remember him saying flat out, he was sick of playing the 80s and the 90s stuff. He was
bored then. Could you imagine now?
I mean, we can only imagine. I could jump out the window and say he's a Biggie of our era, where you're wondering, or Pac or something, where you're wondering, like, what would he have been spitting, And I might be jumping out the window to say that, but enough respect to that man, and no one can say any different, in my opinion. Who knows what he might have been on now, because he definitely was, along with other guys, but he definitely was a loud voice and a big influencer who was up on the electro and electronic music, and how it was gonna, and could forecasted how it was gonna blow up.
Well, he wasn't scared to take chances either.
Fearless. Yeah. Be fearless. Believe in yourself and put people around you that believe in you. I was so fortunate to have people who were willing to let me do my thing. I didn't know that I had surrounded myself with those people. I didn't know if maybe my personality was alpha or whatever it was. I just knew that this is what I was going to do. And I never ever once thought this is not gonna happen. Doors open. When I got to a certain point in my career, and I think there's other people who probably experience things like this, when I didn't know what was coming next, it presented itself. Hey, we're opening a club in Vegas. It's going to be called Tao. You willing to get on the flight? I got that job because DJ Cassidy said no, because Just Ski said no. The money wasn't enough, I think, or something like that. They could probably call in and email in or text in the comments and tell you what it really was. But I know they passed on it. And then the opportunity fell in my hands. And I'm sure I could tell you that both of them at some point thought, I wish I had taken that gig. So be fearless, take risks, and keep people around you who believe in you, believe in themselves. Another thing I learned is, you always surround yourself with people who are strong in the areas of life that you're not as strong. And I think Russell Simmons is someone who was smart to do that. Rick Rubin was his partner. Russell's not a music producer. He might be a producer, but he wasn't a maker of music, a crafter of playing instruments. And so Rick Rubin gave him credibility, helped him find a sound for LL Cool J and Beastie Boys. The first two groups signed him, if I'm not mistaken, to Def Jam. And later Leah Cohen, who was, arguably one of the most ferocious people in the music industry, and I think it allowed Russell to be what he is, a great coach, a nurturer, a leader, a trailblazer, and I think Leor got to be the beast, or got to be the the one who was in the trenches with DMX. I heard an interview where DMX said, they said, who is the one person who's always had your back? Because we all know DMX has been through his share of trials and tribulations. He actually said Leo Cohen. It wasn't necessarily Rough Riders. It wasn't his wife. I don't know. Maybe no. It wasn't. I didn't include like personal people. I don't think. But said, I guess in the music industry, and he said Leo, and I found that to be really interesting. Another thing, I heard an interview with Leor where Leor said, and this is how I feel about my agency. So if you're those other agencies out there, this is what we're gonna do. Leor said, I want my competitors to be scared when we step in the room. Not for any sort of physical reason or any nonsense like that. Just because they know that we come to play. We are gonna deliver music, entertainment, and energy on a level that is gonna cast a shadow. So what I'm doing at my agency is building brands and performers who perform on a level and mold and shape themselves with the help of the agency so that they perform on a level where they cast a shadow. Guys whose brands cast a shadow, DJ Vice. Guys whose brands cast a shadow, Irie. Guys, who when they're doing their thing, some people might say me, maybe at a time or maybe now, and there's other great talents out there. I'm just thinking in the open format world at this particular moment. Guys who, when they're on their A game, Big Ben. Guys who, when they're on their A game, every DJ in the room is small. Every DJ in the room is this big, right? So that's what I'm instilling in my artists. If you don't do that at your agency, hire somebody, because that's what you're gonna be up against. And I'm not trying to be aggressive or anything like that. I'm just letting you know what I see as valuable and what I see as the differentiating factor. When I like a lot of sports references. In sports, when Michael Jordan, when we talk about the microphone thing with Vice, I look at it sort of parallel to and not that I was the Pistons in this case, but just Michael Jordan in the 30 for 30. Anybody who watches ESPN heard him talk about how the Pistons kicked his ass. Isaiah Thomas, Dumars, Lambeer kicked his ass 2 or 3 years in a row in the playoffs and in the finals, so on and so forth, because he wasn't big enough. They literally muscled him and bullied him around, and he went back 2 or 3 summers in a row and just bulked up. Michael Jordan has a quote where he says, he made sure that he turned every weakness he had as an athlete, as a player, into a strength. So the things that you thought you were gonna play him and exploit him on because you heard last year, or he was slow, he got faster. He was weak, he got stronger. So, and then he became a champion. And so, my thing is this, along with that fearlessness comes with a certain amount of honesty. And it's the honesty to be able to look at yourself and say, I need Vitale to stand next to me. I need these guys to help me be great. Your manager is supposed to help you be great. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, listen, I'm sure we could talk for another hour.
Yes.
Because an hour just went by.
Really? Oh my God.
So we don't want to waste any more time.
No, yeah, sorry.
Get you up on the turntables.
Let's do some things.
This was deep right now.
Yo, I want to come back if I have your blessing.
Of course.
With a PM AM agency with 30 DJs.
We can make that
to
happen. Show
you what is going on. I don't want to just talk. I did too much talking.
No, this was great.
I might need to borrow, can I borrow somebody's hands? I'll trade them hands. Hey, let me speak with the hands now.
We're going to take a 2-minute break and we're going to reach up on the turntables. Peace.
Peace.